Hi everyone, I'm Ken from Crypto Trading KS. If you're new, welcome, and welcome back to our regular community. Let's run the numbers. Bitcoin is currently trading at $33,466, up 2.4%. Ethereum currently trading at $21.09, up 2.41%. If you're new to the channel, I'd like to let you know everything I do for you is free. Twice a day, 7 days a week, I share my experience as a full-time crypto trader. I've hidden crypto tips and tricks throughout this video. Unless you watch it to the end, you'll miss them. See how many you can find. My goal is to assist you to be more of a financial blessing to yourself and those you love. Like every YouTube channel, we get scammers. We don't have any WhatsApp, no Telegram, and I never give out phone numbers. All our groups on Facebook, Discord, and Twitter are 100% free, and you can direct message me anytime. I'd like to share Rule 709 with you, integrity first. Now, what does that mean? C.S. Lewis was a British writer. He wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And he said, integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. That's a great definition of integrity, doing the right thing when no one's watching. Henry Kravis, an American businessman, was worth, or is worth, 8.3 billion US dollars. Right now, he said, you cannot buy integrity. You can have all the money in the world, but if you are not a moral and ethical person, you really have nothing. So why are we talking about integrity? When you look at the news, you remember about maybe 4 days ago, 5 days ago, say last week, everybody was saying Bitcoin is going to $10,000. Now what are they saying? Completely opposite things. It's a big part of our future. Everything is fantastic. We expect Bitcoin to rally. These things are really, really important to understand. The news, I believe, lacks a lot of integrity. That's why I say, when you listen or you watch the news, just watch with one eye closed, one ear closed, and half your brain turned off. Because of the lack of integrity, the news typically just tries to explain current price action. It's really important to understand this. Early on in my trading career, many decades ago, I was a devout devourer of the news. I went through everything and it cost me a fortune. I'm trying to prevent you from making losses. A lot of these people writing different stories do so just to get advertisers to advertise in their papers or their mediums or to get views on their stations. It's really important to try to find news sources with integrity. They're definitely out there as well, but they're a minority. Let's have a look at possible crypto price action using the KS model, which is a crypto technical trading model based on institutional price psychology. We look into the bear market segment. We're not here yet. The bull market segment, that's where we currently are. Now, what are we seeking to do? We look back across past cycles to determine their length. We know the previous cycle, the 2016 halving cycle, from the start of the bull market to the end of the bull market, was 43% longer than the 2012 halving cycle. If we take that extra 43% and add it to the previous cycle, we come up with a larger, longer cycle this time. Currently, price action has just been bouncing around that low. It looks set to make an upward thrust. We can see it's actually starting to get above resistance here, just eyeballing it. If people think that the bull market will finish around the 19th of October, say the latter end of October, they will seek to drive prices up exponentially. Ooh, what's R2-D2 and C3PO doing here? They made their way into the last episode too. I'd like to discuss something about price versus value. It's really important to understand. Many people can't comprehend that prices can go up so quickly and so far in crypto. This little example may help. Let's say R2D2 has 10,001 R2D2 tokens. They're valued at $1 each. So little R2D2 has $10,001 worth of R2D2 tokens. His friend, good old buddy, C3PO comes across and says, R2, I need one of your tokens. So R2, being very generous, sells him one at $2. R2 knows the algos. Now, I have a question for you. The latest price is $2. This is all the R2D2 tokens. Let's pretend that. What's the value of the R2D2 tokens to R2D2 now? What is that? Current price, $2, used to be $1. Oh, okay, that's interesting. And how much money changed hands, giving you a hint, to create that value? I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts. There's no right or wrong answer. You just explore it from a conceptual basis. In episode 129, we looked at the previous 2016 halving cycle back to the bull market segment that was around the current price action. You notice this wick down and then shooting up 60.55%. I think that will explain a little bit more about how we can get such sudden and sharp price increases. Now, what does it mean? Are we just going up from here? I would suggest that you always think negative price action is always positive in crypto. Look at this. Even as we came up in the last bull market run, look at this, bang, right down to here, down to that previous all-time high, and then it goes up again. Just be really careful. Crypto is very volatile. I'll always tell you how I see things. Many commentators also say there is not enough money to put into crypto. This particular article in the Visual Capitalist is 12 months old. It explains how all the money in the world is actually accounted for. It's fascinating, absolutely phenomenal. Now, the interesting thing is that many YouTube channels especially have a retail mindset. They think that the only way crypto can grow larger is if savings come into the market. That's personal savings, of which very few people have savings anyway, or stimulus checks, or things of that nature. That's absolutely incorrect. When you look through the market, when you understand how the money works, like global wealth, for example, 12 months ago, and it's increased. 12 months ago, it was around $360 trillion. You can imagine as cryptos gain more and more understanding with the mass public, that's going to see a very big increase in terms of global wealth translated into crypto. If we look at derivatives, derivatives are huge. They're absolutely huge. If 10% of the derivative market actually came into crypto derivatives, which exist, as you know, we're looking at an enormous amount of money. The high-end estimate on derivatives is $1 quadrillion. That's a lot of money. There's so much money out there. It's really important to understand crypto can grow from its current state of $1.3 trillion to $13 trillion in the blink of an eye. Rule 171, zoom out. This is a really important rule to gain perspective. With bank interest rates being so low and a lack of investing opportunities, people can put their money into traditional markets, say the S&P 500 or whatever stock market. They can put it into commodities, precious metals and gold. You notice that this changes every day. This is live data. They can put it into crypto, for example, you can see that the returns on crypto are incredible. That is very, very attractive to people who have money. It's why you're here, why everybody is here. It's the return. It's really important to understand that crypto is the foundation of the internet of value. We had the internet growing in this white line between 1992 and 2006. It was some of the strongest growth we've ever seen in the markets. I've been involved with the internet, running internet companies for a very long time. Crypto is way ahead of internet companies. It is growing more quickly. Crypto is really at a fraction of the adoption. From 2005 to 2019, these are the number of users using the internet. Now, when we look at crypto, we can use a proxy like blockchain wallets. You can think there will become a time when all currency is digital. It's probably useful to think that 1 year ago, only 7% of the money supply was actually physical. 93% was digital already. So you can imagine, as time goes along, everybody will have an internet connection. That can have one, and they will need to be connected to the internet of value to transfer their money around at the speed of light as well. They'll need an individual blockchain wallet, just like you need a wallet or a purse right now. That is probably about 5 years away. If we think as of January 2021, there was nearly 4.7 billion people connected to the internet. Crypto is just a baby. I'd like to do a quick call out to Joe, who just sent me this cryptocurrency adoption index. What a fascinating thing. We can see here that Russia and China and Ukraine and various parts of Africa and Venezuela, US, Canada, the globe is adopting crypto, but there's so much more to do. One day all of this will be at 100%. We'll keep our eye on it. Rule 174, the T-cube method, trend, timing, and trigger. When people are new to any form of investing, they just pull the trigger. Don't worry about the research. I feel it's a good thing to do. And then they see their investment crumble before their eyes. We always need to time the trigger. And if we don't understand the trend, we can't time anything. This is really, really important to understand. We have 7 days a week, 2 episodes, one on the trend, one on the timing. The content of both is completely different. It's 100% different. We use rule 1112 to understand the true trend through the KS process. Through the KS model, we use rule 181 to compare same psychology. That means we're looking at bull market psychology to bull market psychology to bull market psychology. You will see a range and variety of analyses that cross psychological boundaries. From my experience as a first and second year stats lecturer, also from an actuarial science background, when we cross psychological boundaries mathematically, what's happening is we're comparing dissimilar units and trying to understand. It's a really, really bad idea. It creates misleading representations, and that can cost you a lot of money. We're going to look through 8 on-chain data points now, and then we'll get into the stock market, looking at the drivers of stock market value and how crypto is impacting the stock market. When we look at the number of transfers to exchanges, we see the 2016 halving cycle peak. We see this huge amount, huge spike of transfers to exchanges. We compare that to the current price action. What are we seeing? Very, very small. It's like it's down here in terms of the previous cycle. That makes us feel a degree of confidence that we've not yet seen the peak. Crypto is characterized by euphoria, which is this blue, and capitulation, which is literally surrender, which happens in the red. When we look at past cycles, we get euphoria. We have had no euphoria in this particular price segment, current price action. We're down here in the yellow, which is optimism. We still have a way to go before we reach the peak. If we look at realized cap hodl waves for Bitcoin, we can see very specific fingerprints. There are 3 waves, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, whoops, 2, 3, we're missing those. This confirms our probability that we still have a way to go before we reach the peak. A lot of people say, but Ken, this time could be different. If you think that way, you'll probably get crushed by the market. We always go with the trend. Any deviation from the trend usually results in a lot of losses. We look at the Puel multiple, we can see we're closer to the green than we are to the red. Previous peaks have been in the red, so that gives us more probabilities that we still have time to go before we reach the peak. If we look at the Bitcoin hash ribbon, we can see before the peak of the last cycle, 2016 halving cycle, and before the peak of the 2012 halving cycle, there was white space. You see this white space here. Less white space, more white space. We would anticipate even more white space here. When we get to the peak, which hammers in the all-time high for that cycle, we have white space over to the right of that peak like this. This price behavior is indicative that we have some way to go before we reach the peak. The Bitcoin stablecoin supply ratio SSR oscillator tells us how much stablecoin is being deployed into Bitcoin. This is a good sign when we get this upward trajectory. You can see this upward trajectory here drove price up. Another way of looking at euphoria is just to note this particular line up here. That's a long way away from current price action. We've had no euphoria and no capitulation. Things are still looking good. A member of the community reached out with this particular chart. I thought it was really good. I've actually dug into the underlying price details. I'll have to find your name. I'm so sorry. I get so many hundreds of messages per day across so many platforms. It's a little bit hard to keep a track of, but I will definitely give you a shout out. This is the Bitcoin number of addresses with a balance greater than 1,000 Bitcoin. You can see here it was coming down, and created a divergence between the price. What do we see here? Consolidation. We see an uptick in the number of holdings. This is really positive. We'll keep our eye on this chart. Now, let's check the stock markets using Rule 193. We need to get an understanding how the world's largest economy, the US economy, is currently in early stage or mid stage or late stage economic activity. Right now, it's in early stage recovery. That means accommodative financial and monetary policies. They're all good for crypto. The pandemic has an impact on stock markets. Big tech benefits. Other sectors like restaurants, hotels, airlines, they don't benefit at all. Let's have a look at yesterday's new cases. Throughout the world, there were 571,210 new cases. This just gives you an idea of how COVID is still wreaking havoc throughout the world. We look into the US market because it accounts for nearly 56% of every dollar put into stock markets globally. A lot of people talk about the money supply increasing. Let's have a look at that. The current money supply is sitting at $7.585 trillion. Let's have a check at how the consumer price index is going. We can see it's dramatically increasing and has been increasing for a long time. This is a central tenet in Bitcoin and cryptos, especially Bitcoin, that it is deflationary. Let's check out the unemployment rate. We can see this big spike in COVID and it's down to around 5.9%. Let's have a look at federal government debt. It's currently at $28 trillion. Let's have a look at gross federal debt. That's currently $22.67 trillion. It's quite interesting to look at federal debt or total public debt as a percentage of GDP. It's currently 127.52%. What I've done here is to just overlay the price of Bitcoin so we can see any associations between different things. The 10-year break-even inflation rate has passed across resistance, turned it to support, and is seeking to break out. Let's have a look at the 5-year inflation rate. That's much more obvious. Look at the association, potential association between Bitcoin and inflation. Let's have a look at the forward inflation expectation rate over the next 5 years. It's breaking out from this resistance. That means inflation is increasing. Each day we go through this, you learn more and more and more about the economic system. Let's have a look at the interest rate for the 10-year T-note. We can see quite a strong association here with Bitcoin and the 10-year. It is under resistance at the moment, but making its way back up. Let's have a look at the major indices. The Nasdaq 100 is on a bit of a tear. Price is always moving in a wave. It's going up and then down, up and then down, up, and of course it has to come down at some stage. That's just normal price behavior. Let's look at the S&P 500. Very strong support, moving up. Let's have a look at the Russell. Russell broke down from this support down through this support. It's turned to resistance. It's just coming off that resistance. Let's have a look at the Dow Jones. It passed through this support, came to this support, bounced back, and is trying to turn this resistance into support. Quite healthy. Let's have a look at Facebook. Facebook is on a tear. Let's have a look at Amazon. Past resistance, came back, retested, and resumed off. Let's have a look at Apple. Apple is on a tear. Have a look at Netflix. Netflix is showing weakness. Let's have a look at Google, doing very well. Microsoft, on a tear. Nvidia came up through this resistance, hit another level of resistance, came back, and resumed up, but keeping a fresh air above that support line. That's quite good. That's strong. Let's have a look at Tesla. Tesla consolidating around support. What's happening with Square? Square hit support and bounced. Now let's get into what we're here for. All of those other things give us a lot of context. It's really important. Bitcoin, we can see, has crossed over this resistance, making its way up. What do we know? All price moves in a wave. It's always going up and down, up and down. Don't expect if it comes down to be a problem. That's normal. Let's look at total crypto, $1.365 trillion. It's behaving as Bitcoin does. Bitcoin moves the market. Let's have a look into crypto funds, ETFs, and trusts. We can see they're getting above that resistance. It's not surprising. Purpose Bitcoin ETF, just getting above that resistance. QBTC, the Bitcoin fund, getting above resistance. Bitcoin moves so many markets now. ARK Innovation ETF, just under that support line, trying to get back up there, or under that resistance, trying to get back up there and turn it into support. ARKW, same thing, next generation internet ETF. It's under this resistance, one support, and is trying to get up and convert it back. Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, above that resistance, now support, and keeping on going. Let's have a look at the crypto stocks. The Bitcoin group came down underneath that resistance, has come up and seeking to turn it into support. Having a look at MicroStrategy under this resistance. Let's have a look at Galaxy Digital, just below resistance. Let's look at Voyager Digital, weaker, below that resistance. What's happening with Marathon Digital? Under that resistance. What about Coinbase Global? It passed this resistance and is consolidating. Let's have a look at Silvergate Capital Corporation. Above this resistance, turning it into support, showing strength. Hive Blockchain, showing weakness underneath this resistance. Let's have a look at Riot. Underneath the resistance. How is Bitfarms doing? It's underneath resistance. What about Argo Blockchain? It's basically seeking to consolidate this particular price level. Now let's move into the defensive sectors. This is really important to understand. Gold is seen as a flight to safety. What do we see here? A lot of resistance on gold. A failed attempt to break out, hit another resistance level and back down. But this is a low, this is a higher low. We can see consolidation around the resistance level. It's still playing into resistance. If we go and have a look at KSBitcoin.com, we can see gold is down about 5% for the year. The S&P up 36% and Bitcoin up 250%. Let's have a look at silver. Silver was doing quite well above the support line, had a breakdown, retesting this support line. So far so good. Let's have a look at the VIX, the market's fear gauge. It's decreasing. Fear is decreasing. It's helpful to understand. I had a couple of comments about the DXY. The DXY is the US dollar index. It consists of a basket of foreign currencies weighted against the US dollar. It's actually 6 foreign currencies representing 24 countries. They are the euro, the Japanese yen, the British pound, Canadian dollar, Swedish krona, and Swiss franc. What this is saying is that the US economy is strengthening against those buckets of currencies. It's going up, then it's coming down, and it's going up. What's really interesting is a lot of people say there must be an inverse relationship between the DXY and Bitcoin. What do we see? We don't see that right at the moment. We see that the DXY is moving in sync with Bitcoin. As the dollar strengthens, the DXY strengthens, we expect a positive correlation with Bitcoin. This is just from the facts of the data. It's really important that you don't listen too much to the news. Just get the data, analyze it, and decide for yourself. Let's have a look at the TLT, the 20-year Treasury bond. We had an increase in price in here. There's a lot of really interesting stuff floating around about reverse repos and basically banks taking off assets and converting them so that they don't have to up their capital requirements. I'll talk about that more in a different episode. I think it's really interesting. Please dig deeper into it. It's fascinating stuff to look at. Let's have a look at the corporate bond ETF. We saw it break down, now resume up over this once resistance, turning it into support. Let's have a look at the yield on the 10-year Treasury note. We see it broke this support and it's coming up to try to test this resistance. The 30-year Treasury bond, it's over this support, but it's just sort of hovering around there. We always like to look at defensive sectors. The transportation ETF is very defensive by nature. Think about all those COVID cases. You know so much more than just about anyone in crypto. Your knowledge is so extensive. You can talk about transport, you can talk about the dollar, you can talk about indices, you can talk about anything. It's pretty cool. We can see the transportation ETF has this upward support. It broke across this resistance, broke down a little bit, and is testing that support right now. It's just above it. We have to keep our eye on this, because if transport is closed down by COVID and the airlines and utilities will start to rally, we need to keep our eye on these for potential black swans. Everything is okay at the moment, but we just need to be aware. Let's have a look at utilities. Utilities had this resistance line. It came up, was shot back, and it's trying to approach it again. Let's look at the airline index. This recovery through support, and back up to here, turning that into support, is a really good sign. I think airlines and hospitality are probably the two most sensitive sectors. If there really is a major problem with COVID and the Delta strain, these two, airlines and accommodation and basically hotels will sink. But the airline is a very good first proxy. Let's keep our eye on this. It's also important to understand and keep an eye on oil. Brent oil. If the economy is closed down due to the Delta variant, we're going to see oil fall off a cliff like it did before. That's why we're looking right across everything to hunt for problems that could derail Bitcoin. We're always seeking to gather more and more data. So we can see Brent oil has done well. It's come back up to this support line and it's hovering around it on strength. All quite positive. Light crude dropped below, came back. Still good. The secret of this episode is that you will find the news digs into positive reasons to explain positive price increases and negative reasons to explain price decreases. If you have managed to stay this far, I want to say you're absolutely on the road to become more of a financial blessing to yourself and those you love. Undoubtedly, you're putting in the hard work. That's what it's all about. You put your money on the line, you really need to back it up with knowledge. You come to a really good place. Everything I do for you, I'm trying to transfer my decades and decades in markets and in corporates to you to help you out. If you got this secret about the news, maybe you put a little comment, however you like, as artistically as you want to, talking about the news, something about, oh, the news is so interesting today, or whatever you like to say. It would be really cool to see that. We've covered a lot of data here, and some of that data might be a little confusing. What we need to say is that everything is on track. There are no real red flags. We can see COVID infections increasing, but the markets are not doing anything that would suggest they don't have COVID under control or factored in at this stage. I think that's a good thing to walk away with. Everything looks good, but we always look for anything that could derail anything very extensively. If you have other sources that you would like to see in this analysis, please reach out to me on Facebook, Discord, or Twitter. You can always direct message me. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you found this content useful. Everything I do for you is free. Please be aware of scammers. I do these videos to assist you to be more of a financial blessing to yourself and those you love. Crypto is volatile. Always prepare yourself for the best and worst case scenarios. Reality will likely be between them. Stay safe out there. Take care and see you next time. Bye for now.